So I always like to do my previews, when I do an Edinburgh show, I like to do my previews in Johannesburg, just in case they're not very good, and then no one gets to hear about them. But I did one a couple of years ago for a show called After Dinner Stories from my disastrous broadcasting career. And it was all about me being the 11th most famous BBC Jeremy. You know, after Jeremy Clarkson, Jeremy Paxman, Jeremy Vine, Jeremy Bowen, Jeremy Ball. People always forget Jeremy Ball, don't they? The East Midlands Today social affairs correspondent. I know you haven't heard of him. And I was sort of welcoming the audience on the way in, and this lady said, "Oh, you're not the BBC Jeremy I thought you were going to be." I said, "Oh, sorry, which one were you expecting?" She said, "No, I can't remember his name, but he's not you." So that was nice. Welcome to Johannesburg. And then on the way out, she said, "I've remembered who it is." And I said, how do you know it's not me? And she said, "No, because I know what he looks like, and he's tall and good looking." So I felt, very at home in my adopted country. And on the way out, she said, "I've remembered who it is, Jeremy Vine." The tall and good looking one was Jeremy Vine. And to be fair, he is tall. So the worst moment in my speaking career, 2010, Emperor's Palace Hotel in Johannesburg, and I had to plug my laptop in at the side of the stage, and my wife had said to me before I set off, "You can't wear that suit for this trip because you're too fat for it." She's very supportive. And I remembered her words when I was bending down to plug my laptop in, and my trousers split that much at the back. And I thought, I'll quickly go and change. But the guy was literally saying, "And now with a talk on how to use humour in business, Jeremy Nicholas." And I thought, I may not have time to change. So I literally came out like this. "Hello, I'm Jeremy Nicholas, and I went backwards and forwards for about 5 minutes, like a space invader. And then eventually I said, because I knew I needed to turn around and show them some slides and they would see. So I said, "Look, here's the thing. The worst thing when you're giving a talk on humour is you split your trousers." And there was a little bit of a laugh. "Thanks, Louise." And then I said, "No, really, that's happened." A little bit more of a laugh. "Thank you." And finally, I said, "No, really." And I turned around and showed them, and you could see my red underpants through my trousers. Biggest laugh. And to be honest, this talk on humour had never gone this well. So I did half an hour, and at the end I said, "Are there any questions?" And this big bloke stood up at the back and he said, "Now tell me this, do you always wear those trousers for this talk?" Like I'd packed a pair of comedy trousers. But I hadn't, I was just fat. So yes, I married a Kruger, and we just celebrated 10 happy years together. Yeah. Been married 13, but only 10 of them were happy. So my first date didn't go off very well. So I met Jeanette on Match.com, and she kept thinking I was always late. And that's because I always used to say we should meet at 7:30, which to me means 7:30. But apparently, to her, that means 6:30. Are there any Afrikaner-type people here? Apparently it's like halfway towards 7. So the first 3 dates, she was like quite furious to start with. But it's been all downhill since then. My first trip to South Africa, about the first 3 trips, we always used to take her mum a lovely present. And whatever I gave her mum, she'd always say, "Buy a donkey." And I always think, you can't please this woman. Whatever I get her, she's always suggesting I buy her a donkey. What's that all about? We went to Kruger National Park on that very first trip, which is obviously named after one of our relatives. I'd never dated anyone that had a park named after them before. And we hired a red Volkswagen Golf, and we'd been in the park about 30 minutes, and an elephant charged at us. And Jeanette was driving, and I said, reverse, because she didn't look like she was going to. And she said, "I don't know what's behind me." And I said, "I don't care what's behind me. In front, there's an elephant charging at us. Just go as fast as you can." And then when we got back to the ranger's office, the guy said, "Oh, you're the third people that elephant has charged this week. He always charges the red cars." And I always thought, well, don't have red cars. Seemed quite simple to me. We're in the South Africa High Commission here. I don't know how much power there is here, but I just wondered if I could make an appeal about the Big Five. I was a bit disappointed with the Big Five. You know, which ones they picked. Elephants, definitely yes. Lions, brilliant. Rhinos, yes. Leopards? No. That's just a lion with spots. And Cape buffalo, what's that doing in there? That's just a fat cow. So, like I said, I don't know if we could lose leopard and Cape buffalo and, like a sort of fantasy football thing, transfer in giraffe. Why isn't giraffe in? They're brilliant, aren't they? They've never harmed. Are you toasting that one, madam? Yes. And hippos. Hippos should be in. So I don't know if we can sort that out, either get it made up to a 7 or lose the useless leopard and Cape buffalo. So my wife's family live in a place called Potchefstroom. Is anyone familiar with Potch? It's a university town, and very proud in the region. They were the first town to have traffic lights in that region. They got a bit of a deal. But when the traffic lights arrived, it turned out they bought some like big motorway ones, and they were just massive. But the town was still quite proud of them. And the first time I arrived, I've always called them traffic lights, but South Africans don't call them traffic lights, they call them robots. So my mother-in-law was giving me directions, and she said, right, you go down this street till you come to a giant robot, and then you turn left. And I said, I'm not going down that street if there's a giant robot, because I had seen far too many science fiction films. And I felt like on that first trip, there were so many phrases that I didn't quite get. Like, the family would say, oh, Jem, we're going out to church just now. So I'd get my coat on, yes. Off we go. And they go, what are you doing? Well, we're going to church, aren't we? No, we're going just now. And I went, yeah, I'm ready. And apparently just now is about half an hour after now. It's like a different time. So it's Greenwich Mean Time, and then there's South African time, and there's just now, which is half an hour after that. And then there's also the South African no. So I'd often say to people, did you have a good day? No, it was great. I go, why is that a no then? Isn't that a yes? And they go, no, I don't think so. Apologies for keep doing the South African accent. I feel like I am partly South African, so I'm allowed to do it. The one thing I've noticed with South Africa is the complete obsession with the royal family. Like, all of my nieces and nephews and cousins in South Africa know all the minor royals that I really couldn't care less about. You know, William, Harry, all of those, they know all of those. The one thing that I've always bonded with in South Africa is football, because I'm a massive football fan. For 16 seasons, I was the stadium announcer at London's top football team, West Ham United. Why is that funny? And I always call it football, but of course, in South Africa, I would say, oh, I'm going to the football. And they go, well, you need to set off now. I go, why? Well, it's quite a walk to the football. We'll give you a lift. And I went, no, it's just over there. And they went, oh, you mean soccer? And I go, yeah, but I never call it that, because that's not the proper name for it. But when I got married at West Ham, and when I first took Jeanette, my wife, before we were married, to see a game there, she sent her mum a text saying she was going to the football, and her mum replied, enjoy the rugby. Probably the most prestigious thing I've ever done is I'm the voice of the stadium announcer on the global best-selling video game FIFA. Has anyone heard of the FIFA video games? Yeah, Louise is like, what? Pretending she's heard of it. So the first game I did was FIFA 06. I did 11 consecutive FIFA games. And whenever I'm in South Africa, Jeanette always tells the people, and then I end up doing announcements into their phone. And if anyone's got kids that play FIFA game, come up to me at the end with your phone, and I will shout, does he play the FIFA game, or he's got kids? That lady's just pointing at a man randomly that she's hoping to date later. So if you've got kids that play the FIFA game, the voice is, goal for Newcastle scored by Andy Carroll. anyone with kids will be quite annoyed by that voice. But it's not very accurate because Andy Carroll is injured even on FIFA. He's the most injured footballer ever, and there's talk he might leave Newcastle and join Holby City. It's a hospital, isn't it? In casualty. So because I was the voice on the FIFA game, once we were in Johannesburg and we got invited to see this big football tournament in Soweto, the really big tournament. It was the final on the Saturday afternoon. And it turned out that I just thought we were going to watch. And then I was the guest of honour on the halfway line with brilliant food, and we were under a nice canopy, and they kept bringing us stuff, and then they said, do you want to come and meet the teams? And I thought, why is that? I'm just the voice on a video game. And I realised that there'd been some kind of miscommunication, and they didn't think I was the voice of the FIFA video game. They thought I was a representative from the global football organisation FIFA, the people that run the game in the world. And I thought I really should tell them, but the food was lovely, so we just kept quiet. One thing that my wife's family were always a bit annoyed about is that I never have managed to learn Afrikaans. And she said, why haven't you done that? And I said, because all of your family speak English. But when they're together, they'll all speak Afrikaans all the time, and they'll tell a funny story, and then as they get to the punchline, they'll want to involve me, so they'll do the punchline in English. And then they'll look at me like, what a misery, he never laughs at anything. I didn't understand it. I didn't understand where it was going. So my father-in-law took him about 9 years to get used to the idea of his beautiful girl marrying a Brit. And the one time I think I really won him over was in 2012, and I was the main athletics commentator for the London 2012 Paralympics for the global television feed. So my voice, if it was Oscar Pistorius running in a race or anyone, you would hear my voice anywhere in the world. And it was live on SuperSport, which is like Sky TV in South Africa. And my wife would text me how to pronounce all the South African names to make sure I said Fani and not Fanny. And people were saying, oh, he's really good at all the Afrikaans names, this guy. And at 10 o'clock at night, we would always say goodbye to the South African audience, and then we would carry on until 10:30 for anyone else in the world that wanted the commentary. And so I started saying, this is when, my proper BBC voice, well, now we say goodbye to our viewers in South Africa. And then after a while, I started chucking in little Afrikaans phrases like, lekker slaap my engels, which means sleep well. And one day, my father-in-law was in his back garden, and his neighbour was saying to him, oh, there's some British guy on SuperSport doing the commentary, and he keeps talking Afrikaans. And that was the first time my father-in-law ever owned up to even knowing me. So that was nice. So I'll just end with a sporting thing. I'd like to wish South Africa all the best against New Zealand in the Rugby World Cup final. I promise that we will soften up the New Zealanders as much as we can in the semi-final. I don't hold out much hope. I love rugby. We live right near Twickenham Rugby Ground. My birthday's in November. Every year, my wife buys me tickets for me to watch my team lose to her team. I think since we've been married, we've beaten them 3 times, I think. And once we took my dad to a game, and I'll just end with this. My dad at half-time, he's led a very sheltered life in rural Suffolk. And he leant across to me and he said, there's a bloke next door to me, a South African guy, and he keeps saying, tickle them. What's that? What sort of tactic's that? Tickle them. And I said, Dad, I think he's saying tackle them. And all of my wife's English friends, so my name's Jeremy, but I'd prefer to be called Jem, as in To Kill a Mockingbird. Jeremy's called Jem, isn't he? But all my wife's English friends call me Jim. And I say, why do you keep calling me Jim? They said, oh, no, your wife said your name was Jim. And I went, yeah, but she also says yes. So there we are. 4, 3, 2, 1. That's 15 minutes. Thank you very much. I've been Jeremy Nicholas. Thank you.